Consumers in the United States are not in a very good mood, according to a number of polls this week, and inflation is bound to keep the Christmas spending at the retail level to a minimum, warns Ernst & Young. Zogby International added that even in the short term, the current consumer mindset in recession mode, they are much less likely to spend money at all, a point proven out in June's department store sales. Zogby and Reuters measured confidence at 88.7 points, which is only 1 point above a record low. Optimism about personal finances fell, and consumers point to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for the nation's troubles. The approval rating for the president is 25% and Congress is 11%. The ABC News Consumer Comfort Index held near record lows, some 30 points below its historical average at negative 41. Investors Business Daily and TIPP Comfort Index slipped to a record low at 14 points. Gallup found 81% had negative feelings about the economy. Only 4% said it is in good condition. 87% of consumers said the economy is getting worse. That perception is up 10 percentage points from January. What is interesting, though, is that this negative sentiment crosses all income levels. Confidence in the banking system has tanked. Consumers also cite 7 consecutive months of job losses, record gasoline and food prices for holding their most negative view of the economy in 1/4 century. Annual consumer inflation stands at 5%. Hourly wages recorded a deficit of 1.6% against inflation. Wholesale prices rose 9.2% in June, the largest increase since 1981. Retail sales in June, according to government stats, found that higher gasoline and food prices helped drive up the overall spending 3% to $384 billion. However, department store sales dropped 1.3% to $17.2 billion. And with all of that said, Zach, I hope you're here to cheer us up some.
Well, Jeff, that's not very good news for anybody. I probably won't be cheering anyone up, but I can't say my comments are worse than yours, as long as I don't have to be the one to report on the drop in diamond production. In any case, the economic climate here in Israel is certainly rosier than the U.S., but the market is getting quiet as we head into midsummer. That's not to say things are dead, as there's some trading going on, but no one is going to be making any trips to Hong Kong for the rest of July. There's little interest in adding stock that's likely to sit around for 2 months, so what trading that is taking place is mostly to fulfill existing orders. Market demand for the time being is focused on good colors in D, E, and F, and VS2 and above clarities. The most notable change is a shift in fancy colors towards intense and vivid grades, making light and fancy colors less desirable. I'll have more about the Tiffany versus eBay legal challenge after this message. A New York judge told Tiffany this week that they alone are responsible for policing their trademark. The decision was in response to Tiffany suing eBay for permitting the sale of counterfeit Tiffany jewelry. U.S. District Judge Richard J. Sullivan said Monday that eBay can't be held liable for trademark infringement. The judge said knowledge that trademark infringement might be occurring on their site is not enough to hold them liable. Chris Glancy joins me now to comment on the ruling. He's an attorney for the New York office of White & Case's intellectual property practice. Chris, what does this ruling mean for branded products sold on eBay? Is this a carte blanche endorsement to sell knockoff products?
No, not at all. I think branded products have always had to be concerned about knockoffs, and they have been concerned about knockoffs on eBay for a long time. So I think that really hasn't changed. What the whole litigation really does point up is the difficulty of brands in the internet age to police infringement, because you've got broadband, which is becoming, the broadband speeds are getting greater. You've got sites popping up all over the place. You have greater access to high-speed communications, which enable everyone to upload copyright infringing materials. It enables people to get into the market with little or no startup costs and be a player, be a seller. So in that scenario, you've got brands who are dealing with copyright infringement and trademark infringement on a scale that they had never had to contend with before. And the difficulty, you'll have some sympathy for Tiffany, is in trying to manage that. And it would have been advantageous to Tiffany to have eBay take some of that responsibility off their shoulders, but the court in this case said, no, it's Tiffany's responsibility to police their mark.
So how does a jewelry brand protect itself from knockoffs that appear online?
It's a really good question. I think jewelry brands need to have some sort of enforcement and policing effort, and really decide what kind of investment they are comfortable making in protecting their brand and their intellectual property. You've got to monitor these sites. You've got to take action when you see that there's some infringement, but you also have to sort of weigh the pros and cons. There are costs involved, and you have to consider whether or not something is worth the effort of pursuing. Sometimes you get somebody who's a fan who is doing something with your intellectual property that you'd rather not have them do. But the fact is that fan's enthusiasm is actually creating some brand equity for you. So do you really want to spend your legal resources combating that? Many companies choose not to.
Well, I appreciate you for talking to us today, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you.
Back to you in New York, Jeff.
Thank you, Zach. An important topic for online branding, indeed. Rio Tinto diamond production fell 29% to 4.5 million carats in the second quarter of 2008. This follows a 30% drop in first quarter. Declines were led by a 32% drop from the Argyle mine. Production was down 23% at Diavik. Production rose at its Zimbabwe holding, but only accounted for 67,000 carats. For the half year, production is down 30% to 9.6 million carats. Just to refresh you on all the other figures of late, BHP diamond production between January and March was also down 30%, and last year De Beers' total carat production was down slightly at 51.1 million carats, led by a 2% drop from Debswana. A little difficult to get carat figures from Alrosa, but the company reported a 3% drop in sales last year and a production increase of 1.7%. Retail sales in Singapore rose almost 5% in May, the most recent reporting month, but when auto sales were removed from the equation, retail rose 8%. Department store sales rose 12% and jewelry sales rose 7%. In precious metals news, thousands of miners stayed away from work in South Africa well ahead of a nationwide strike planned for August 6. Miners seek a wage increase to combat inflation. Gold is off its peak earlier of almost $990 an ounce for the week. It is up 4% to $962.60 an ounce. Platinum is down 2% to $19.14. Platinum is off 15% from its record run in February. Silver is holding its own and rose 4% to $18.77 an ounce. Silver is up 43% from 1 year ago. For all the latest news, please visit diamonds.net, your leading source for diamond industry information.